Good morning, everyone in the United States, and a good evening to everyone in India. I'm Raju Rajagopal, a co founder of Hindus for Human Rights, a US based advocacy organization set up in mid 2019 with the objective of defending democratic values and religious freedom in India, in the United States, and in other parts of South Asia. As part of our advocacy efforts in the US, we provide a platform for progressive Hindu voices, which have sadly been missing in Washington for some years, with Hindu nationalist groups purporting to speak for all Hindus and indeed for all Indian Americans. We are also committed to amplifying voices from India who are at the forefront of defending Indian democracy. And we are determined to bring the cases of human rights defenders who are being incarcerated by a vengeful and fearful government to the attention of the US administration and international human rights organizations. Today, on Martin Luther King's birthday, we are honored to host this important event along with Indian American Muslim Council, but it is a painful event. On behalf of Sanjiv Bhatt, a brave IPS officer who spoke truth to power in the wake of the gruesome 2002 pogroms in Gujarat. He had alleged that in a meeting chaired by the then Chief Minister Modi, he was witness to the fateful decision that the law enforcement machinery shall stand down to give Hindu nationalist organizations free rein to attack the Muslim community in the state, purportedly as revenge for the Godhra tragedy. Sanjeev has been incessantly hounded by the authorities since that time. In 2018, he was interrogated on a decades old case, was tried on completely bogus charges without any opportunity for the defense to call their witnesses, and was put away for life. In 4 days, January 22nd, the Supreme Court of India is scheduled to consider his plea for bail. We are gathered here today with a lineup of eminent people of conscience from India to join together and appeal to the court to exert their independence, summon their humanity, and do their constitutional duty to safeguard the fundamental rights of Sanjeev and reunite him with his family and give him a fair and impartial hearing in a court of law. Thank you. I'll now pass the baton to Rashid Ahmed of Indian American Muslim Council.
Thank you, Raju. I concur all that Raju has said. Hello, everyone. Good morning, good afternoon, or good evening. Perhaps good evening is more appropriate as I am directing my comments to Indian government where it is late evening. My name is Rashid Ahmed. I am the Executive Director of Indian American Muslim Council, also known as IAMC, a Washington-based human rights and advocacy organization. IAMC is proud to partner with Hindus for Human Rights, another United States-based advocacy organization of Indian American Hindus. As it is obvious, Indian American Muslims and Hindus, along with many other Americans, we simply urge Indian government to stop politically managing Mr. Sanjiv Bhatt's case and let the law take its course under the supervision of independent judges, not the judges who are either scared of government or have themselves become political. There is no ambiguity. Mr. Sanjiv Bhatt's conviction and incarceration are politically motivated. Charges against him are baseless. Courts clearly know it, but the political masters want him silenced so that their own crimes stay in the dark rooms out of public eye. Mr. Bhatt is a much honored and recognized police officer whose record shows that he spent his life upholding the law and speaking the truth. He deserves fair trial and independent judiciary. He is perhaps one of the first prisoners of conscience among the increasing number of prisoners of conscience in India. List is too long but easily available. I imagine the esteemed speakers will cover his case in more details. Thank you for your attention and please amplify this message until Mr. Bhatt receives justice. Thank you, Raju.
Thank you, Rashid sir. It's now my pleasure to introduce Soren Shaw.
You went mute, Raju.
There you go. Okay, can you hear me now? Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm pleased now to introduce Mr. Soren Shaw. a Gujarat-based lawyer who is representing Sanjiv Bhatt, who will lay out the chronology and the case of Mr. Sanjiv Bhatt. Mr. Shah?
Am I audible?
Yes. Please go ahead.
Thanks for inviting me in this seminar. And I, just being a lawyer for Sanjiv Bhatt, I'll apprise all of you with the legal aspects and the factual aspects which are emerging on the records. The incident, as everybody knows about it, it's 30 years old. Way back, it happened on 30th of October 1990.
Mr. Shah, your video is not visible, so could you make sure that the video is on?
Just a minute, please. What has gone wrong with the video? I'm not aware about. Now, still it's not there, right?
You're still not there, but if you are unable to do that, please proceed.
Anyway, can you just, I need to start it because I don't know what's wrong with the video. Video, was everything working perfectly? Can I just again leave and get back?
Either that, or if you don't mind, you can proceed with the audio.
Or not a problem, okay. So the factual aspects which emerges are that the incident is of 30 October 1990. And prior to 30 October, I just let you know that Sanjiv Bhatt not only is an IPS officer, but he is also an engineer who has done from IIT Mumbai. And his first appointment was as a ASP, Assistant Superintendent of Police at Jamnagar on 10th of October 1990. The incident is of 30 October 1990, and this incident happened on the wake of a call given by the L.K. Advani of Bharat Bandh on 24th of October 1990. So it's just 20 days of his posting as a Assistant Superintendent of Police. These communal riots took place in Jamnagar, where the incident was reported of by one Hiyanat Khan Pathan, where a crime was registered by a local police, and that local police had arrested around 133 people for the communal violence in Jamnagar. He was an ASP. He received a wireless calls that the situations at Jamjodhpur is getting worse and you need to be there. So with his team colleagues, he went and reached that place where already the local police had arrested 133 people in connection with one FIR, where one of the person was late Sri Prabhudas, for which he is now prosecuted for the charge of murder. On 30/10/1990, when he was arrested, when this Prabhudas was arrested by the local police, and later on, after 18 days, that is on 18th of November, he passes out. He dies in a private hospital, and thereby his brother files a complaint to the SDM for the charge of murder against the police officers, which includes even Sanjiv Bhatt. Now, the interesting moot question would be what has happened from 30 October 1990 till 18th November 1990. All these local police had produced the 133 accused before the district magistrate at Jamnagar on 31st of October 1990. There also, none of the accused makes any complaints to the magistrate about police atrocity. Even the late Prabhudas was also produced before the magistrate. He has not made any complaint. Thereafter, since Tada Act was invoked during those days against all these 133 accused, the learned magistrate sends all the accused to the judicial custody, that is in jail, Jamnagar, they have been sent for. And later on, when he is produced before the jail authority also, the jail authority have not recorded any injury on late Prabhudas, external or internal injuries. That is how the jail records also stands of 31st October 1990. He does not even make any complaint before the jail authorities, before the superintendent of jail, late Prabhudas, of being police atrocities having been received by him. On first, he makes a complaint to the doctor about some back pain, whereby doctor examines him and gives some medicines and asks him to take rest. On 3rd of November, he again makes a grievance about back pain. So he is sent to civil hospital of Jamnagar, that is the Irwin Hospital, Jamnagar. And there also he does not make any complaint about the police atrocity to the civil doctors at Jamnagar, nor he makes any complaint. And the doctors who examines them are also satisfied there are no external injuries or internal, and as an outdoor patient is treated there and sent back again to the jail. So on 3rd November 1990, this sequence happens. On 8th November, from 3rd till 8th November, he is in jail, taking no treatment at all and not making any further complaints. On 8th November 1990, he has been released on bail along with 133 accused. And from then onwards, he is not even in judicial custody. From 8th November till 12th November, 11th November, he is at his home, not receiving any treatment, and nothing is emerging on record as to what was happening with him from 8th November to 11th of November 1990. For the first time on 12th November 1990, he goes to one private hospital, Navalben Manilal Virani General Hospital at Rajkot for some treatment. And after 6 days of treatment, the person succumbs to his treatment, and whereby the body of the late Prabhudas has been handed over to the family members, that is the brother of the deceased, and thereafter this complaint comes in existence. Now the question is, where does Sanjiv Bhatt gets connected with the beating or to Prabhudas? That is not also emerging on record. And would this amount to tantamount to charge of murder? Because the man was in custody of local police on 30 October, and the sequences and how the treatments have been given to him clearly shows that there was no external or internal injury which would reflect that it was a police atrocity whereby he has received some injuries which would result into cause his death. So basically, to my view, and I am of the opinion that even if I take this state of Gujarat stand, then also this man can never be convicted for a charge of murder. So when all this thing happened and a private complaint was lodged in 1990 by the brother of the late Prabhudas, then the question of sanction came. The state government in 1995 did not grant any sanction to prosecute the police officers. So the magistrate who was sitting on this complaint rejected those and issued summons calling upon all the police officers to attend the charge of murder. That happened way back on 15th of July 1995. Now the state government felt that no, the police officers are required to be protected. Therefore, in 1996, the state of Gujarat filed a revision application against challenging the order of the magistrate summoning the police officers for the charge of murder. From 96 till 2011 June, the case could not proceed further because of the revision application filed by the state of Gujarat was pending and the hearings were taking place. In meantime, before June 2011, July 2011, in somewhere in April or May 2011, Sanjiv Bhatt ended up giving some depositions of 2002 riots, as in 2002, Sanjiv Bhatt was working as a deputy commissioner in charge of internal security with the State Intelligence Bureau during the Gujarat riots 2002. So he was apprised with and acquainted with a lot of other facts of 2002, which he deposed before the Justice Nanavati and Justice Mehta's commission. And finally, based on his depositions, the state of Gujarat on 6th of July 2011 decided to withdraw the revisions. And accordingly, on 8th July, the state of Gujarat made an application before the Sessions Court of withdrawing the revision application, which was filed way back in 1996. And the learned judge, while allowing the withdrawal of revision application, have clearly in terms observed that the decision is the state decision is political motivated. Those observations are also the part of the records of the revision application 21 of 96. And thereafter, everyone knows about it, that he has been convicted for a charge of murder with no medical evidence even supporting remotely to sustain these charges. And I feel that the matter is now sub judice before the Supreme Court and is bound to get a good justice for sure.
Thank you, Mr. Shah. I wish you all the very best in your proceedings at the Supreme Court. I would like to next introduce a video recording by Mr. Shashi Tharoor, author, former international civil servant at the United Nations, and our member of parliament from Kerala. Sunita, could you please share Mr. Tharoor's video?
Greetings, namaskar. I'm Shashi Tharoor, Member of Parliament for Thiruvananthapuram in the Lok Sabha. I am joining you all today to share my message of support for the Free Sanjiv Bhatt Conference, jointly organized by the Hindus for Human Rights and Indian American Muslim Council. Though I do not know Sanjiv Bhatt personally, I have been outraged by the injustice meted out to him. I find it fitting that this gathering of some of India's most eminent defenders of human rights has taken place or is taking place in solidarity with Sanjiv Bhatt and his family on the day that we all consecrate to Martin Luther King Jr. We're all aware of the various forms of injustice that have been meted out to Sanjiv Bhatt as punishment for his conscientious service to society, as an IPS officer, as a citizen of India. His indomitable capacity for speaking truth to power has put him in jail. As has often been the case in this new India, as it's being called, by the ones who are trying to transform all that was good and noble about India. Let me say that Sanjiv's case is a reflection of the grim times we live in, where constitutional values and basic fundamental privileges that have been granted by the Constitution to all Indians appear in many cases to be diluted and perhaps even supplanted by illiberal forces. All Indians with a conscience, like Sanjiv Bhatt, have been granted by the Constitution to all Indians, appear in many cases to be diluted and perhaps even supplanted by illiberal forces. All Indians with a conscience, like Sanjiv Bhatt, must stand up and fight back against such challenges that threaten to undermine the very foundations of our republic. I'm sharing this message with all of you in solidarity with Sanjiv Bhatt, and I certainly join you all in expressing the hope and prayer that the judiciary will give him justice when his petition for bail is reviewed on the 22nd of January. May we all preserve the precious India that Mahatma Gandhi fought to free. Jai Hind.
Thank you, Mr. Shashi Tharoor. We will send a formal response to your gracious agreement to share your views here. I would like to next introduce Mr. Darapuri, a former IPS officer in Uttar Pradesh, also a social activist and a politician, to share with us his view of the Sanjiv Bhatt case as an IPS officer himself. Mr. Darapuri.
Good evening. I can relate myself to Mr. Sanjiv Bhatt on 2 points. One is the Indian Police Service, of which he has been a member, and so have I. I fully recognize the responsibilities and the duties that come with this service and how crucial it is to be an upright and righteous officer in shouldering the public responsibilities. I am also aware of the challenges and threats which one faces if one chooses to act conscientiously. The other point on which I relate myself to Mr. Bhatt is how it feels like to be at the receiving end of the state oppression. Some of you might be aware that I was also arrested and was jailed for almost a month for opposing the unconstitutional Citizenship Amendment Act last year. There was not a single evidence of my involvement in the violence that broke out under dubious circumstances on the day of the protest. On the contrary, I was put under house arrest on that very day. Ever since, me and my family have been fighting a legal battle and facing threats of seizure of my property by the state. As such, I can fully understand the tormenting it can be for an individual to seek justice in the face of a fascist state. As we know, Mr. Bhatt was not involved in any way in the case in which he has been falsely implicated. He has been prosecuted and convicted merely because he dared to expose the involvement of the then Chief Minister of Gujarat in the 2002 pogrom. Unfortunately, today, a story like that of Mr. Bhatt is not unusual for most of people in India. It has become the unavoidable fate of those who dare to question the state. As we know today, a large number of human rights activists and other prominent personalities who have dedicated their lives to the social cause are facing the same consequences. Unfortunately, our criminal justice system has been subverted to serve the interest of those in power. In light of that, a citizen is left defenseless before the mighty state. In addition to this, draconian laws have been devised by the state to persecute the dissenting voices. The need of the hour is that we all citizens of the world must recognize the impending danger of the onslaught of fascism. We need to acknowledge this threat across borders. In the present circumstances, we all who believe in justice, the rule of law, and human dignity have to come together and stand and fight against the tyranny of the state. In the end, I would like to remember the words of Martin Luther King Jr., whose days we are observing today, that injustice anywhere is a threat to the justice everywhere. Keeping that in mind, I sincerely hope that Mr. Bhatt and his family will get justice. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Darapuri, for that powerful testament. I would like to next introduce Arundhati Duru, a women's and human rights activist who has been working with Hindus for Human Rights in other projects. Arundhati ji, it's your turn.
Thank you. Good evening and good morning to all joining, and thank you Hindus for Human Rights and IMC for inviting me to speak. I know Sanjiv. I think I'm one of the person apart from family here who knows him for years. I knew Sanjiv when he was one of the earliest posting in the Narmada thing, 30 years back. And I still recall, I mean, even at that time, as a very, very young officer, just out of the prestigious IIT, he was still standing in with the tribals. He was one of the person who never used the power of his baton or firearm, but in fact, always stood by the people to fight it out, the whole battle. I think that the same constitution which Darapuri ji and Shashi Tharoor ji spoke about is the same constitution, I hope, which he uphold, and all these years by the rule of law. I really hope that the Honorable Supreme Court of India is a testing for the Supreme Court of India to uphold the same constitution and by the rule of law, allow and absolutely take out all the charges and release him unconditionally, because he has always followed not only the rule of law but the battle of the humanity and justice. We all stand with Sanjiv, and we hope that what his family has gone through and many others, because what Sanjiv symbolizes today is actually, I'm sure if Sanjiv would have been with us today, he would have joined the ranks of farmers who are there on the Delhi borders fighting for the rights over the Indian people. I mean, he's that sort of a person, and I really wish he'll be out. And I think it's really tremendous effort by our friends from the US to join us on this, especially on this MLK day, when the person, Martin Luther King, who inspired generations of the civil rights movement, and Sanjiv, who stood not only for the civil right, but with his love and for the humanity and for the justice, is a symbol and one of the person flame of our great constitution. Thank you.
Thank you, Arundhati ji. I would like to next introduce videos from two people who could not be here personally. Of course, you all know Anand Patwardhan ji, documentary filmmaker and a human rights defender, and he has been extremely passionate about bringing the voice of our prisoners of conscience to the rest of the world, and he has recorded a message. Following that will be Malika Sarabhai, who has also been one of the early champions for human rights from Gujarat and has been hounded incessantly by both the Gujarat government and later on by the central government. She's a human rights activist, a classical dancer and actor, and her voice for Sanjiv Bhatt is the second one. Sunita, please go ahead, play the two video messages, Anand Patwardhan and Malika Sarabhai. The sound is not on.
This is a solidarity message for Sanjiv Bhatt and for all his friends and well-wishers and family that are fighting for his release. I believe that Sanjiv Bhatt has been put in jail for no other reason than the fact that he opposed the massacre in 2002 during what was called a riot, but it was actually a pogrom. And because Sanjiv Bhatt, as a police officer, stood up against this and started talking about it, then they dug up old matters to implicate him. So I don't think that he is in jail for any of the things that he actually did himself, but as a kind of punishment for speaking out. So I believe we should build a movement for its release. Thank you.
I stand here today to try and get justice for Sanjiv Bhatt. And I stand as an Indian who is deeply worried about the state we are in. Many of the institutions which we felt were dependable, neutral, have keeled over to the powers that be. The Supreme Court, which we always believed in, is today taking cases which are liked by the government on an urgent basis, and other cases which are extremely important and involve thousands of people have been left to stew. So many dozen people who have been human rights fighters, who are educators, who are writers, who are mere doctors trying to figure out a way to save children, are all in jail without bail, without even the slightest courtesy for their age or any other infirmity. Sanjiv tried to speak the truth as he knew it. And he has been slapped with a case that was solved, and he was absolved of it many, many, many years ago. There seems to be a very definite agenda, not only in Sanjiv's case, but in the case of everybody else who has spoken out against the government and has been thrown into jail. We see all around us that if anyone speaks against the government or asks a question, which is a fundamental right of our democracy, they are somehow punished. Raids are carried out against them, false cases are brought up, fraudulent charges are made, and they are made to silence. What can we do to see that Sanjiv is heard, that he gets justice? We can only strive to ask that the courts become impartial again, that they look at the kind of serious offenders who roam our streets and who roam our parliament and who incite violence, and stop putting people who wish to make this country great again, to not make them suffer and not make them into victims of vindictiveness. I hope that today we will be able to appeal to the better sense of our great courts to say what is being done to Sanjiv is wrong and needs to be corrected immediately. Vindictiveness should find no place in our courts or in any of the decisions taken. It is a sign of weakness and it is a sign of fear. And our courts can neither be weak nor fearful. I hope that our appeal will see that Sanjiv gets a fair trial and that this case is dismissed as the frivolous case that it is.
Thank you. Thank you, Malika, and thank you, Anand. The last in our series of speakers is, of course, Sandeep Pandey. He is here live with us, and I'll hand over the microphone to Sandeep.
Yeah, thank you, Raju Bhai, Sunita, and Rashid Bhai for organizing this on the Martin Luther King Day. It is such a, I should say, we feel obliged that, I mean, we should have been organizing it from here, but you have taken the initiative. So I commend the initiative that you have taken. And about Sanjiv Bhatt, I must say that he was not the only police officer, by the way, who questioned the Gujarat government on the handling of 2002 violence. There were other officers. I remember Mr. R.B. Shri Kumar from Kerala, then Rahul Sharma, who resigned and has become a lawyer now, and probably one or two others who had raised a question on the handling of 2002 riots by the Modi government. But Sanjiv Bhatt was the most courageous of them all, because he went and filed an affidavit stating that the then Chief Minister of Gujarat supervised a meeting, chaired a meeting, in fact, in which the police officers were told to go soft on the Hindutva brigade, which was rampaging against the Muslims as a revenge for what had happened in Godhra. Godhra itself is a mystery. How did that accident take place? And what happened after that is very sad. The manner in which the dead bodies were taken out in a procession with a clear objective of provoking violence from the Hindutva brigade, and what followed, is a very sad history. The violence in which about close to 2,000 people, more Muslims than Hindus, got killed, and the government allowed it to go on for 3 days. So that is his crime for which he is being punished. for daring to speak against the government of the day, and unfortunately the people now are more powerful. The man who was chief minister is the prime minister, and the home minister Amit Shah also had a case against him, the Sohrabuddin encounter case. And we all know how the judge hearing this case, committed suicide under mysterious conditions. So the manipulation of cases is a common story in this government. The way my own chief minister, he had 16 cases against him, Mr. Yogi Adityanath, including a case of attempt to murder and inciting riot, and they withdraw cases against themselves. They manipulate so that either the witnesses are threatened, the people who have filed the cases are threatened to withdraw the cases, and the judges are influenced so that the people who have committed the crimes are not convicted. I mean, if you think about it, the affidavit that Sanjiv Bhatt has filed, if it is taken seriously by the court, then a proceeding will begin against Mr. Narendra Modi. And obviously that cannot happen because he is now the prime minister. So Sanjiv is paying a price for what he did, and the people who are in power are in a situation right now to be able to manipulate things so that they can get away with whatever crimes they did. And everybody knows about it, all the crimes against committed by Mr. Modi, Mr. Amit Shah, Mr. Yogi Adityanath, and their complicity in those crimes is well known. It is just that they are in power and therefore they are able to evade any action against them. But I'm sure, just like Sanjiv Bhatt's case has been reopened, even though, as Mallika Sarabhai put it, it was already resolved and he was absolved. But the cases against Mr. Modi, Mr. Shah, Mr. Adityanath, I'm sure some future governments will reopen these cases, and they might have to face the same situation that Sanjiv Bhatt is facing today. So they must be beware of what they are doing and the manipulations that they are doing. This is not a right precedent that they are setting, and who knows, one day they may also have to pay a price for this. We all hope that the Supreme Court, which has also become biased slowly, over the years since the BJP government has been in power, from the time the decision was taken on Kashmir by the government of India to the CA and RC, a judgment by Supreme Court itself awarding the place where a mosque stood and awarding the same place to the destroyers of the mosque to build a temple, and completely ignoring the situation of the workers coming back from big cities to homes during lockdown, completely overlooking what the government did with the environment impact assessment regime, ignoring what they did with the labor laws, and right now manipulating so that the farmers movement can be weakened at the behest of the government. Their role is and as Mallika Sarabhai mentioned, quickly awarding bails to people who are pro-government like Mr. Arnab Goswami, and keeping human rights defenders, so many of them, in jail for such a long period of time. This has never happened in this country. Even in emergency, when Mrs. Indira Gandhi imposed emergency, the maximum period for which people were in jail was 2 years. And they were treated respectably as political prisoners. But the present government is treating activists and lawyers and professors like criminals, and without giving them any chance to get a bail. So the things have worsened, and the role of Supreme Court is also, dubious. We only hope that its conscience, is awakened, and they give bail to Sanjiv Bhatt and hopefully to the remaining prisoners of conscience who are rotting in Indian jails. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Sandeep. I want to let the audience know that they can type in any questions for any of the panelists who are here with us using the Q&A box at the bottom of your screen. While we wait for any questions, I would like to call upon Rashid Bhatt to see if he wants to make any closing comments, and then I will make my closing comments. Rashid Bhatt? Are you, Rashid Bhatt, are you on?
Raju, no, go ahead. Go ahead. You can make the closing comment.
Yeah. Well, on behalf of both Hindus for Human Rights and Indian American Muslim Council, I would like to extend my thanks to all of you for taking the time out to show your solidarity for Sanjiv Bhatt. Sandeep, you talked about, you were thanking us for organizing this overseas rather than in India. And I think it's somewhat of a privilege that we have here, because we don't have to face the kind of consequences that some of you are facing. So your work there inspires us greatly to carry on here. And with the new administration here, who have actually appointed a coordinator, international coordinator for human rights, our hope is high that the Biden administration will not let human rights be ignored for larger geopolitical interests. But it is not going to happen automatically. We are determined to go after the Biden administration, the new State Department, and various lawmakers here, that they simply cannot ignore the dire human rights situation in India when we are ourselves facing similar situation here. Perhaps the message will get through far clearer than it would have otherwise. And lastly, but not the least, I think it's the advent of Zoom that is allowing us to be in touch with all of you in these troubling times, and let's make the best use of it to advance the cause of human rights in India. And we'll continue to work on this issue and raise the prisoners of conscience issue with various lawmakers, and perhaps even share some of your testimonies today with the incoming State Department, if that is all right with you, to give them a direct feel for what is happening in India. So I don't see any. Let's give a couple of more minutes, and if there are no other questions, if any of you want to make any other closing remarks, please feel free to do so. We have 2 or 3 minutes. After having heard others, if you want to add your comment to it, please feel free.
Yeah, Raju, I just want to concur all you have said, that we join Hindus for Human Rights and other communities and other organizations that stand for human rights, that we will pursue Sanjiv Bhatt's and others' case here, educate policymakers and media and civil society that are eager to work with us. And now more and more, as the news comes out of India, are getting very concerned about it. And it appears, at least at this time, the new administration, Biden administration, perhaps will be more, at least vocal about what's happening in India, not just the Sanjiv Bhatt or other prisoners of conscience, but the entire capitulation and crumbling of Indian democracy as we knew it. So with that, I thank you, Raju. I concur with all your comments.
Okay. Yeah, there was a question by Shiraz, and I think I've answered that. His question was, can this be taken up with the Biden administration? And most certainly we will. The recording of this press conference is probably can be found even now on Facebook. And we will also make sure to post the full recording on both our Hindus for Human Rights and also in Indian American Muslim Council websites. We will have a press release shortly about this conference. Please share it widely. And I think somebody has typed in the link to the Facebook link to the conference on Facebook. Praveen Srivastava, can international human rights organizations be approached in this case? The answer is right, absolutely. We have, I think, over the last year, several of the organizations that the US have been working with United Nations Human Rights Organization to raise the awareness of prisoners of conscience in India. And what was missing in that effort is support from the US administration. And our hope is when we continue to engage international organizations now, we will be supported by the Biden administration to make a stronger case. And we'll continue to do that. Let's see, there's one more question. No, that's all we have. Thanks, everyone. And let us wish all the best to the Sanjiv Bhatt family. And let's hope for the best resolution on 22nd and that Mr. Bhatt will be reunited with his family in just a few days. Thank you so much. And let's keep working. Bye-bye.